next point is parent yourself first.
Yeah.
When we do that, reparenting yourself, maybe you weren't raised right, so you got to reparenting your inner child, you got to meet your unmet emotional needs, and how self-compassion builds a better parent is all for your child also. It's not just for yourself. So don't think that if I'm taking care of myself, I'm being selfish or I'm prioritizing myself over my child. But think about it this way. Uh, when you are a happy, positive, good person, that's when you become a good parent also. That's when you become a good spouse also. So, what do you think, Dr. Farhana? Why is reparenting yourself or your inner child? There's a little child that's still upset
Yeah.
in all of us because I wasn't looked at. I wasn't taking care of my needs, and when I cried, nobody picked me up.
Yeah.
When I was upset, nobody cared. Why am I upset? Nobody, or I didn't have a safe space to talk
Yeah.
or share my feelings or just to cry even, it's okay
Yeah.
for a child. Crying is actually therapeutic to anybody. Depends on who you're crying to, but just to have that safe space to cry. I think if I didn't get all of that, my inner child is still upset about it.
Yeah.
And this just clicked me. Am I taking the revenge from my child because I wasn't given all those things? I'm not going to give it to my child either. Am I doing that? Do you think that's kind of like a generational trauma as well? And how do we tackle that?
Yeah. Yeah, probably, that's happening very subconsciously. It's not that,
Mhm.
you're intending to, pass this on,
Mhm.
but since you have not invested in, figuring out what, how your experience was as a kid, and then you corrected those, it's probably subconsciously just passing on to your kid. So very, very important, very, very important point, So, you so based on your the whole thing is, whatever experience you had as a child, the way we understand things is we make narratives, or we make stories, or we make what it means, and that is what, as a human, we that becomes our perspective. and
Mhm.
and that story or that narrative uh, is has all the power. So the whole point in reparenting your inner child will be to go back and first of all identify, as we talked in the previous section, to
Mhm.
identify what happened in your childhood, going through all those childhood memories, which might be a painful thing, but that's why, there, if
Yeah.
you need help, please feel free to take the help of life coaches or psychologists to go through that process, and then
Mhm.
you make sense of it, in a positive light. And amazingly, what has been shown, that if you end up doing that, you are kind of, you will heal yourself big time,
Mhm.
for
Mhm.
example, understanding, why your mom was terrified, what was the pressure. So okay, that is why she behaved the way she behaved. So that will be one, writing the narrative in a very positive light, and making a good story out of. And again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran helps us big. Everything that's happened in the past has a reason. It's going to be of a benefit for you. Look at all the positive things which you built out of those experiences. So you could rewrite a story in a very, very positive, very, very positive light.
Yeah.
So that will be one. And then the second point would be, if you have made beliefs, or some concepts which are very negative, then the Quran is going to come and clear all of them out. For example, this life must be easy. You must always be happy.
Mm.
All kind of concepts which probably you built as a child. So again, if you go through the Quran one by one, it'll give you the reality check and will put you the right level there. So these two steps, I think, will be very, very important.
Yeah.
And yeah, and thirdly, I think the need, as you mentioned, the
Mhm.
inner child needs love, needs the safety and the security, and that again, even if your parents have not done it,
Mhm.
um, as a child in a most optimal way, again, the Quran, your connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to absolutely fill that, need for love, his security. He is there to protect you. So the Quran is going to fill everything, and this is going to make you, in the most, optimal thing. Yeah. So these three to
Wholesome.
work on. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wholesome.
a wholesome person. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. SubhanAllah. So it is true. I believe that the void any of our relationships create when we are not given our haq, our right, by our parents or our spouses or our siblings, anywhere, when we are not given that right, uh, which was given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is a void that's created, and it's never filled by anything else. I mean, we can go shop as much as we want, we can go travel as much as we want,
Yeah.
but if we're not taking care of that empty space in our hearts, nothing's gonna make us feel better. Eventually we'll keep coming back to that pain and that hurt in our, because all we're doing is masking it. When we're masking something, it's not healing. And like you mentioned, Quran is going to transform your life. And subhanAllah, that's exactly what happens when you connect your heart with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you connect your heart with Quran and you live your life according to the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all those painful experiences start making sense. And Allah tells us why were you put through all those pain? There was a purpose, there was a reason. You needed to learn something you would not have learned otherwise. You're
True.
becoming something big. Subhanallah.
True.
So all of our pains are for a reason, and this dunya is a place of trial. This dunya is a place of pain. And that's all what you see around yourself. How many people do you see happy? I mean, can anybody just come forward saying that I had the best and perfect life and I had no difficulties, no challenges? My parents were perfect in parenting, or my financial needs were taken care of. I was never hurt. No, nobody, no, none of us can have a pain-free life. They're just coming from different directions. You may have experienced pain some other way. I'm experiencing it some other way, and that's what the reality of this life is, because it's not Jannah. We're not in Jannah. We're in dunya. And dunya is a place of pain, trial, tests, difficulties, hardships. And once we accept that fact, a lot of it starts making sense. And then things fall into place, and we are able to find our purpose. We're able to focus on the right things we should, inshallah. So, um, so that's what I mean, these points also bring us towards self awareness, because if you're not self aware, you're not going to be able to reach that inner child that's hiding deep in your heart, still sad, still mad at your parents, still angry about not being hugged, still angry about not being loved or cared or uh, valued the way you should be. And it's all, I, see, this is not, these are not invalid expectations from a parent. So if you have lived a life where you were neglected, or you were anxious, or you were you had to disassociate yourself from the environment, you become what you are today because of that environment. uh, it was not how it was supposed to be. That's not normal. That's why we're talking about these things, so that we can change that for our kids, inshallah. um, so your concerns or your expectations or your anger is justified, and it's very much valid. So we're not disregarding those concerns. We're not disregarding that you've been through something, and that's what have made you into a person you are today. But what we want all of us to understand, that if we did not change this today, if we did not break the cycle, we are going to pass all of those things down to our next generations. And our next generations are the ones who are creating the society and this ummah and the world. So we are playing a huge role here. The fact that we are sitting here talking about it, the fact that you are listening to this conversation is a huge reminder from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you are chosen. You are the ones who are awake. You're the ones who are thinking. You're the ones who want to make a difference in the world, inshallah. So you're the chosen ones, and we don't want to lose this opportunity from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has given us by getting us together. And not only with this conversation, anywhere else you're finding this information, knowledge, you want to improve yourself and your parenting, it's all a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it all comes because you now want to make a difference in the world. And we don't want to, like, how much, if I invite you over for dinner and I ended up burning my food, am I still going to serve it to you? I should not. I should not, right? So look at it this way. If I had a bad experience, do I need to make sure that the rest of the world need to have the bad experience because I had a bad experience? Or I should try to make life easier and better for others.